Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 56 of A Series of Death. Marlot rested his head over his arms on the steering wheel, pad to his ear. Are you sure? Someone honked, and he looked up. Traffic had moved forward another foot. There has to be something about who took him. These had not been a few good days, Marlot thought, as he drove forward another foot. He hadn't expected his promise to go to Trembor's place to take this long. He'd envision handing Nikal over to the Revenue Bureau and walking away with a slate for his report. Instead, there had been questions. Because of the stacks of files at the house Marlot mentioned when he handed the hair over. At least, Nikal had handed him the perfect excuse to be involved when he'd killed Gorek in his territory. The ID card had come up, but he'd played it as not being aware they had been the hair's doing. His multiple calls to the department supported that. Still, those had only taken a few hours. Then had come the other RIs, with Layden Swiftkill at the lead. Convincing them he hadn't been withholding information was harder. They didn't only care about the hunter being caught, but the fact their productivity had been affected by the cases they hadn't been able to close. Sleekcoat had been particularly nasty for some reason. Still, again, there was nothing they could prove. Yes, he talked with some of the victims, but that was in line with returning the IDs. Even the subsequent call he could still explain as part of that, with the clear inability of the department to solve the issue. Sorry, Afrina said, sounding as tired as he felt, even if she'd only been involved since this morning. Everything within the system is in order. The name on the transfer file exists within the legal system framework, and I can even find 6 other prisoner transfers this person supervised. The problem occurs when I try to match that person to someone real. The identity only exists within the system. I will close his eyes. There has to be something at the caging complex itself, then. I went over that as deep as I'm comfortable, within the rules I need to play in. I have security vids of Nikal Swiftfall being escorted out of his cage by an officer. They walk through the complex, following a path that would take them to the transfer processing block, but they walk through a dead zone, and a few minutes later, the officer walks out of it alone. Marlot looked up. Dead zone? As in the camera were turned off? He moved the car forward the other foot, just as someone honked, and he looked over his shoulder, baring his teeth. Dead zone, as in there are no cameras there, she replied. I pulled the original blueprint as well as the official security layout, and they don't match what I'm seeing here. I can't tell you if it was done when everything was installed or a handful of cameras on the security layout aren't there. I can't tell you if it was done when everything was installed, but a handful of cameras on the security layout aren't there. My guess is that if you were to get in and do an independent check, you'd find passages going from each to the dead zone to somewhere else, maybe to one another, maybe to outside the complex, since your hunter never left by one of the official exits. Mallow chuckled, letting his head fall back on his arm. Me? Go in? Like they did an RI. Go into a caging complex. Hey, you're a hero again. Have you looked at the newsy sites? Marlot Blacklaw, Hunter Stopper, only alright to ever stop 2 of them. Marlot groaned. Didn't need to check them. The newsies had hounded him almost as soon as the RIs had been done with him. Maybe one of them had thought they were a proper punishment for the perceived slight of Marlot acting alone. He didn't want to think what they'd do if they could prove he had shut them out. Why do they keep insisting on making it sound like I was the only one involved in stopping Ruxel? We were all involved in the stalking, and there were 6 or 7 of us there when he was finally killed. I wasn't even the one to kill him. He told the newsies then. He told them again this time, because, of course, they brought that hunter up once they cornered him and forced him to answer their question. It's not as dramatic as if it's the shy RI who traveled to the city to bring the hunter into justice for the crimes he committed in his hometown. If it ain't drama, it ain't. I can't come up with something to rhyme with drama. Marlot looked up, paranoid some of them were following him. He did not want them there for this meeting. They'd all run off this morning. Some scandal at City Control Board or something they considered more dramatic than him hiding from them in his house. But maybe there were still a few desperate for a piece of Marlot's story. How much for you to go in there and remove every mention of me? You heard the construction ahead, the reason for the traffic barely moving. Pavement repairs, as Pat had told him when he checked, which had been after he'd been stuck. He knew the area, and Trembor was the one who navigated when he drove. He wondered if this was the kind of work detail Nikal would have ended up on, or as one of the rare hunters caught alive, he did. If he'd be headed to a research lab to be questioned about why and how he did what he did. There isn't enough money in the world for me to want to piss off the newsies. There's a reason I work in the dark, Marlot. But you can get a warrant and such. You can actually do this legally. And then my name's attached to it, she replied. You of all people know that's what it's possible to do with a name attached to a report. They would find me and devour me. I'm not a predator outside of the information system, Marlot. Anyway, they're on the financial advisor story now. Seems she might have been using city funds to pay to have a rival removed. By the time that's over, they'll have forgotten about you. Unless you go and uncover a third hunter. Marlot groaned. Thanks for that thought. What do you want to do about the dead zones? She asked. I have documentation, so I can send that to you. I'd rather not file the report myself. I'm not comfortable with the kind of finances and political power needed to pull something like this off. And I know it could be used against me. I am a recorded felon. It wouldn't matter anyway. Like you said, it takes a lot to do something like this, and I'm just an RI. Even if anyone listened to me, what would they do? I wouldn't be surprised if by the time anyone looked, everything would be in order one way or another. Just lose the information. Erase any trace you were close to it, and thanks for checking. Already done, and you're welcome. He disconnected the call and dropped the pad in the cup holder. So Nicalan made that up. Marlot had been certain the hair had been delusional, but what was he saying? What was the saying? Just because you're crazy doesn't mean there isn't an entire secret organization after you? That probably wasn't it. Still, Nikal resurfaced. Unless Nikal resurfaced in his territory, he was someone else's problem now. And if the rest of what Nikal had said and implied was true, the hair wasn't going to be seen anytime soon. Maybe he should have killed Nikal like he wanted. The lion stepped out of his house as Marlot started up the path leading to it. He had to restrain himself from running. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed that smile, to just look at him and not have to be afraid to be yelled at, or Trembor to be happy to see him. He reached the lion at the bottom of the stairs and opened his mouth to say something. He didn't know what he'd say, and the need to decide was removed when Trembor wrapped his arm around him and held him tightly. I missed you so much, Trembor whispered, burying his muzzle in Marlot's neck and breathing in deeply. Marlot hugged his lion and took in his scent. I missed you too. There was joy and desire in it, but also worry, some fear. I'm so sorry, Trem, for never listening to you, for always having to get my way, for being so self-absorbed I didn't see how it hurt you. Trembor took Marlot by the shoulder and held him at arm's length, looking in his eyes. Stop. I'm to blame too. That Nikal was right about one thing, he said. We both have trauma, and I was so busy trying to help you get over yours, I never even thought to tell you about Gorek and what he did to me. I couldn't even tell, Marlot said, and again he tried to recall one instance when his lion might have flinched at a touch, or at the way Marlot ignored his advice. He didn't want to think he'd missed all of them. I buried him deep once I got out. Worked through a lot of it. I thought I'd put all of it behind me. He stopped, and Marlot searched his face and sent for a clue as to what he was thinking. If I'd been free of him, I would have told you instead of running off. Walking off, Marlot corrected, smiling, and the lion rolled his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took so long to come see you. It was not how I planned things. Trevor smiled. I did catch that interview where you regaled them in taking credit for stopping both the hunters. They did what? Marlot was going to go in there and kill whoever had. His lion was laughing. I'm joking. You didn't leave them a lot to work with. Knowing you, they had to remove a lot of cursing anytime they tried to credit you with Roxel. I'm surprised there was enough left for even one interview. Maybe I should tell them Nikal's vanished and let them freak out over that. He realized that that could be a way to shed light on what had happened at the caging complex. There was no way whoever was behind it would be able to cover it up if the set of fear stopped him. Trevor stared at him. He escaped? Marlot shook his head. I think it's more his previous employer forcefully rehiring him. Employer? Marlot shrugged. Nikal mentioned some them as part of his past a few times, so I'm guessing it was who he worked for. Thumber thought, and Marlot let him since he was also calming down. Could it be the protectors? That body armor seemed to be the real thing, and the way he fought, how good he was, I've never come across prey that fierce. I asked Ba about it. She said she'd look into it, but that I shouldn't hope for much. The protectors are tight-lipped about anything they do, even with ex-protectors. If one of them has gone bad, the way Nikal did, she isn't sure they'd even want to acknowledge he was one of them. But he isn't coming back? I don't think so. I certainly hope to never see him again. He smiled and nodded toward the house. But enough about him. I want to talk about us. How about we go in? I have Heralex and Isenson while my moms have a talk with Bo at his place. Marlot nodded. How is he? How are they? Heralex's stuff. He'll be fine. Isenson, he's at that age we start to notice our parents aren't perfect. This isn't how I'd want any cop to find out their father's flawed, like the rest of us. He's shaken, withdrawn. Hopefully, once he's back with his dad, he'll get over it. Marlot looked around. It was only the two of them, other than the goat couple trimming the bushes on the house on the other side of the street. No newsies anywhere in sight. Then we do this here. Herbert chuckled, his son growing nervous. This? Marlot took his lion hand in his. I screwed up, Trem, and I'm sorry. I have an appointment with a counselor to go through my problems. This ordering you around, I seem to have a bad habit of doing. Marlot, you don't let me finish, okay? All right. I love you, Trem. I know that. On a purely technical level, I don't have to do any of this since we're already mated. Lifetime, if I remember correctly. Trevor said, nodding. Marlot smirked. And aren't you regretting it now? Not at all. Marlot almost kissed his lion for saying that, but Dorma had given him some advice when they spoke. I don't want us to jump right back into being mates, not with what happened between us. I want us to date for a while, figure out if we can work now that we know all this about each other. He fully intended on using the time to make sure things worked, but he wouldn't make the decision for both of them. Trevor nodded. I'd like that. A car stopped close by, and Trevor looked in that direction. Marlot looked over his shoulder as a hyena in lynx and enforcer uniform exited. He cursed at the same time as Trembor. They couldn't have figured out it withheld information on Nikal, not about his involvement in the game they played, or how he'd lied about working out where the hare was hiding to explain he'd caught him. But what else could it be? Why was this timing so bad? The one good scent in this rotting mess was that there were no newsies to document the fall of their hero. At least he told Trembor his piece. Hopefully he'd come visit him. Derrimac, Trembor said. Or Cal? I thought I'd have longer. So you knew we'd find out, the lynx said. You could have made it easier by turning yourself in, Trembor. I know. Marlot looked from his lion to the two officers, trying to understand why they were addressing Trembor as if he was the criminal here. Trembor Golden Mane, the hyena said, sounding pained. You are under arrest for interfering with an enforcer investigation, for hacking into enforcer servers. Further charges will be laid at your feet as they come to light. Turn around, lace your fingers together. Know that if you resist or run, you will be chased and stopped. This is your only chance to ensure you are taken in alive. Stop! Marlot yelled, stepping between the enforcers and his lion as he did as instructed. What's going on? Hacking? You have the wrong male. Trembor wouldn't break the law if someone had their feet on his neck. The hyena shook her head. Are you two getting back together now? Trem, are you really doing that? The lion chuckled sadly. I did say I thought I had longer. No, Trem, what's going on? Marlot demanded, and this time he saw the wince, but his lion couldn't expect him to stay calm. Evidence was given to the enforcer showing how the cub, Bo Goldenmane was accused of killing, was actually killed, and the evidence planted, the lynx said, which meant we had to look into the evidence that had been previously discovered that shifted the culpability to a different party. We traced that to a hacker, and they gave Trembor up for a reduced sentence. You said you'd see Jasper in a cage. The hyena said, I didn't think you'd do it this way. Wolf, you need to move out of the way. No, you aren't taking him away from me. The lynx stepped forward, but the hyena stopped him. Believe me, I want this as much as you do, but if you try to interfere, you're just going to make things worse for both of you. For you both. Marlot Trembor said, let them do their jobs. His lion stood back to them, waiting to be restrained. Fuck this! Marlot turned the lion. Fuck taking it slow. Fuck the law, and fuck his lion for being so damn good. He'd do the right thing even if it forced them apart again. He kissed him hard, held him, didn't let go once Trembor kissed him back. He would never let his lion go again. The rest of the world could just go and fuck itself. Trembor pushed him away gently, ending the kiss. We'll get through this. This isn't me giving up on us. It's just the fucking right thing to do, Marlot snarled. The lion nodded. I need you to call Serek to come pick up the cubs. No one knows about us yet, and he's about the only one who won't claw you on sight. Trem, Darina said, we have to restrain you and take you in. Don't, Marlot begged his lion. They could run. They could be together. What else mattered? Look after the cubs until my brothers are here, okay? He put his hand behind his back and as he turned to present them to the officers. He's going to be safe, the hyena said as the lynx wrapped a plastic band around the lion's wrist and cinched it tightly. This is bullshit, Marlot snarled, but stayed where he was as they took his lion away. He had his pad in hand, numbers in his head. He just had to figure out who the best one were to call right now, because there was no way he was staying on the side while the fucking justice system had its way with Trembor. I'm going to save you, Trem, and you can fucking hate me for it afterward. And that concludes a series of death. If you enjoyed this book, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one is going to start, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the other books in the series, and this one too, they are available at all major e-retailers. If you want to support me, that is on my Patreon, where you can also get access to everything else I've written. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the note, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.